RC is a hobby of geography. Your experience with it completely depends on where you are and where you live. If you live in the southeastern US, you'll be surrounded by big dirt-style outdoor tracks and ovals made for nitro vehicles. In the north or west, high-traction carpet or AstroTurf electric 10-scale racing is usually the most common, with a large splattering of on-road racing as well to spice it up. This also extends to brands used as a whole, though that's a bit harder for me to comprehend. It's hard for me to think of a place where companies like Team Associated and Losi aren't plastered everywhere you go, though I'm sure many said the same thing about HPI years ago. Maybe this is because I live in the US where these companies dominate, but I'm well aware that things are different across the pond in Europe. Schumacher is the UK's contribution to RC racing, and they're rightfully very proud of it. They have an illustrious racing history worthy of standing with other big names like Team Associated and Losi. My point is they have big shoes to fill when it comes to their cars, and this is one of their later creations. The Cougar lay-down stock spec two-wheel drive buggy. Now truth be told, I don't have much experience with cars outside of Team Associated and Losi, so this is going to be a new experience for me and many around me. The first thing that struck me, however, was how loyal fans of this brand tend to be. One notable case was when I asked what to expect from buying this car, and I got some actual responses that I'll mention later, but most of them just talked the car up. Notable answers to the question of what to expect were podium finishes and lap traffic. Then finally, I was eager to get started on this thing to see what it could actually do on the track, but unfortunately my enthusiasm was cut down by the reality of my own amateurism very quickly. The box and how it was set up was very inviting. Each individual bag was tailored to a specific step in the manual, and the manual itself was clear enough for me to understand. The kit itself comes with everything you need to go for tires, foams, and electronics. Not only that, but the box also comes with multiple setup sheets that seem to work well enough for the surfaces they're labeled for. A little bonus for this kit, specifically the stock spec, is that it comes with direct drive as standard. No need to buy a slipper eliminator separately. It was at this point I was hit in the face with a brick wall though. Schumacher are quite particular with how they want you to build their cars and are a little different compared to how others do it. I knew this was the case going in, but I had no idea how far it would go. If I were to describe the build, it would be optimized, but sort of awkward. Compared to the Team Associated I was used to until now, everything was built for performance. Not really ease of access, with the one exception being the servo mount and servo placement. On the track, this is great. More performance is always great, but on the bench, this makes for a frustrating time working on the thing. Chief among them are the shocks themselves. The building materials themselves are very good, don't get me wrong, but building them initially was a bit of a chore. I know this has been mentioned before by other more popular channels, but it really needs mentioning now if you don't already know. And it's that you need to drill your own bleed holes into the shock caps. The holes themselves are already drilled out for you to finish, but my question is why leave something like that up to user error rather than do it at the factory? It just seems unnecessary. Not only that, but the shock caps themselves are in two pieces, one aluminum and one plastic. Again, this is good design in paper and partially in practice, but it's another annoyance on the bench. Now I know I've been very negative on this car so far, so let me balance that out for a second. The material used to make the parts for this car are amazing. They feel high quality and good to the touch, and fortunately that fully carbon fiber chassis is plenty strong and stiff. Not only that, but there's one part of this car that's very easy to access, and that's the servo and servo horn. All you need to do is remove the front shock tower plate with 4 screws, pop off the top ball cup mounted shocks, and there you go. Again, this will be important later. Also, instead of ball cups for turnbuckles, they use capture pins. That's just another plus. In summary for the build, I must say that if you're a beginner or have never built a kit before, avoid this kit like the plague. This one is for people who are a lot more experienced, organized, and patient than I am right now in my life. I do feel satisfied after finishing this thing, but I don't think I could do it again for a little while. Where this car shines the most is when you're on the track actually driving. Now there are a few caveats to the footage you're seeing now. First, this is pretty much the second time I've driven this car, and second, this is footage taken from a GoPro mounted on top of the body, throwing the entire weight distribution off. With that being said, I was able to keep up with completely murdered out B6.2s very easily. I haven't had too much experience with this car, though the fastest time I've been able to crack with this stock car is 10.5. With enough time, I'm sure I could get this down to the lower 10s easily. The best way I can describe how this thing drives is direct, efficient, and quick. Even without sway bars, this thing loves to turn and will be able to take corners really tight right out of the box. Now there's something I need to mention, and that's brass parts for this car. In stock spec racing, there is usually a minimum weight requirement, and like many other things, this differs depending on geography. In the UK, and I think most of Europe, the minimum weight usually is 1,450 grams. However, here in the States, that number is increased to 1,499 grams. What this means is that out of the box, this buggy is far underweight, coming in at around 1,417 grams. Keep in mind this was a very liberal use of the paint on the body. What this also means is that you have to order many brass upgrades in order for your buggy to meet racing regulations if you live in the States, and that can raise the price of this already expensive car even more. With that being said, with these upgrades the car will handle better, so that's a plus. What's hard to convey in words or even footage is how this thing really feels to drive. Like the rest of the car, it isn't beginner friendly, but once you get the hang of it, you'll be flying around the track. The last thing I want to touch on briefly would be durability. I'm very well aware that this kit is designed for the sort of hobbyist who doesn't really crash at all, but I'm not one of those people. As a result, things did go wrong. There were small things like hardware backing out due to my own forgetfulness to properly Loctite everything, and then there were larger things like the Plasto servo horn stripping after about 4 minutes. Other than the servo horn, nothing has broken on this thing yet, though I have seen others run their Cougars much harder than mine and do end up breaking things. It's really hard for me to give this thing a fair shake. Looking back at my script, it feels like I was mostly negative and nitpicky with this car for no real reason. Most of the problems I've had with this car have been mostly self-inflicted due to my own lack of experience, notwithstanding that servo horn. Simply put, I don't think I was ready to take this thing on initially. It was way different from what I was used to, and the car itself was not meant to hold your hand. With that being said, I think I'm going to hold on to it for a little while. I feel like I've adjusted to working on it a bit better now than at first, and I want to see what it's truly capable of. Maybe in the future I'll fully convert it to a Schumacher fan. Until then, I'd like to thank you for watching. If you want to see more, be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment telling me what you think. If you want to support me even more, I've left a link to my Patreon page in the description below. Have a good one.